Where do I start? Where do I begin? How do I...
Hi there, Unlimiteds. Welcome to another Conversation Unlimited. And joining us today, I have Penny Haslam. Hello there, Penny.
Hello, David. Nice to talk to you.
It's great to speak to you today. And many of you may be wondering who Penny is. And Penny is a business journalist and broadcaster who has worked, and for those of you outside of the UK, I'm sure you've heard of the BBC, that Penny's had quite a few appearances on the BBC. So I'd love you to share some of who you are, Penny, and what's brought you to where you are today.
Oh, well, that's a long story, so I won't go on too much about that. But yes, you're right to say that I'm a BBC broadcaster and a business journalist, and I've been broadcasting for around 20 years. Actually, this month I celebrate 12 years of being a freelancer, which is a sign of great success or survival, depending on where you're coming from. But so in that time, I started as a secretary at the BBC 20 years ago, and worked my way up with common sense and enthusiasm and energy and all that good stuff, to eventually, my first big break was to be asked by a program which most listeners will be familiar with, Panorama. Panorama approached me. It's a flagship news and current affairs program that's been going for 50 years to present a program about pensions because, I have a background in personal finance and business programming. Of course, I said yes. I'm freelance. We say yes to things. And then became very nervous and worked it out. How was I going to do this? What was I going to wear? What was it like going to be on television? I had no support, really, because, talent is meant to just get on with it, and found and felt my way through. The program was a success. I did a good job, and then I moved on to live television. So I was presenting the business news on BBC Breakfast in a brightly coloured jacket every day with far too much makeup on and smiling at 6 a.m. at a time when most people can't even raise a cup of tea to their mouth, and onto rolling news channels as well. So I pride myself on the fact that I survived those live television moments, even though I didn't really know what I was doing, and found my way through, and have interviewed hundreds and hundreds of people. And through the years, I've developed media training and media coaching so that people don't have to go through what I went through, which was a very nerve-wracking and anxious time of going on air. So I offer a lot of supportive media training and coaching so people can develop their own expert careers. A lot of the time we think about being interviewed on TV or radio as being combative, and like a politician would get interviewed by a challenging presenter, or Donald Trump, as we saw, would give as good as he got in the US. Yes. But my USP, I suppose, develops experts. And these are the people who turn up and they talk about news stories. They're not part of them. So I feel very strongly that people shouldn't feel fearful or nervous or have a bad time. And in fact, that they should use these opportunities and create their own opportunities to appear on the media, and it might be social media as well, or video online, to create a virtuous circle where you keep getting asked back time and time again because you did a good job and you fit the brief. And that's where I'm at. That's what my passion is now. I love broadcasting. I love interviewing people. But really, I love seeing my clients go on air and do a great job and then get asked back and they get customers from it, and it's nothing else than a virtuous circle.
I can certainly sense your passion in that, and you bring up so many thoughts for me as you describe the world that you've been in the last 20 years, and I think I mentioned to you before that you talk about the combative interview. I've had a few experiences of being interviewed on radio. I haven't been on TV, but it's been on radio. And I'll just share a couple of very funny experiences that also really talks to the benefit of media training. A dozen years ago, I was the company spokesperson for a challenging announcement. It was we were making 1,000 people redundant. And I had a lot of interviews very quickly, and the professionals were super quick. It was over and done with. They'd be on the phone for 2 minutes, and it would be done. And I got a call from someone in Radio Bristol who said, I picked the phone up. He said, "Hello, David. I'm whoever it was, Radio Bristol, and we're going live on air in 3, 2, 1. And I had no chance to take a breath. I had no chance to pause or get to know the guy, no rapport. And he was like Jeremy Paxman. He said, "Mr. Taylor, in the past year, you made 4 billion euros in profit. How can you sleep at night?" And I think it could have been very easily, I could have very easily been frozen to the spot because it's an incredibly challenging question, totally unexpected. But actually, I've had some great media training from probably one of your colleagues, actually, Penny, that an ex-BBC journalist who trained me very simply. He came along with a recorder. He said, "I'm going to ask you the questions, but you give the answer you want to give. Acknowledge the presenter, acknowledge the journalist, and then give the answer you want to give." Politicians do it all the time. They say, "That's a great question, but the real question here is," and that's what I did. And
politicians do it very badly as well, don't they? They do it very clumsily.
They do.
And they do that.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you've asked me that. What I would like to say about it is ...
Yes.
But it's worth bearing in mind, now you're putting the fear of God into everybody with your terrible experience there, David. It's worth bearing in mind that I would suggest that just 1% of all bums on seats, all the people who get interviewed on TV or radio in the chair opposite a presenter are not there because they've done something wrong or because they're a politician having to answer questions, difficult questions, or there's not been a scandal or a crisis at a company. Most interviews are to get information. So they become this kind of two-way conversation between a presenter or a journalist and an expert. So what do you think about this situation? What's happening? What should people think about it? And what should people do next? I mean, that is the journey of an interview, really. And so, therefore, there are lots of opportunities for people to fill the seats, really, to be, the media needs experts. And it can be a really good experience. But your experience sounds absolutely horrendous, and I wouldn't wish that on anyone.
Well, luckily, and I think even in that situation where it was a difficult announcement we were making, I mean, I did 79 interviews in 4 hours, and that was the only one that was difficult. All the others, they wanted information, they wanted to know more, did I have an opinion, was there something I could help them with? That's what they wanted. And I think, my other media experiences, I think you're absolutely right, which is it's been a very supportive and symbiotic relationship where I've brought something to the media which has made their jobs easier, made their lives easier, because it's helped fill the pages, and they've loved that, and that's been a very positive thing. And what I want to do is, sorry.
I think a lot of people see the media as all-powerful and this great big monolith, especially in the UK where there's the BBC, and it's working out how you might find your way to talking on air. Little me. I'm only I'm running my own business. I'm a sole trader, or just me and someone else at running a company. Why would I be an expert? Why would I be called upon? Well, actually, I think you're probably, people are the most nimble like that. They can make the decisions to go on air. They're not overshadowed by an overly media-trained chief executive who's going to take all the glory. And they can actually have opinions that don't have to go through, and you'll know this, the compliance of a company or the legal department, or you're not worried about what you might say because it's the wrong thing to say. When you're talking about your own experiences, your qualifications may be, when you're articulating your opinions well and commenting on something that is nothing to do with you, the job becomes a lot easier. And I think when we talk about experts on air, a lot of people, modest people, would say, "Oh, I'm not an expert. What do I know?" And I say just that. Do you have experience in your field? Can you articulate an opinion? And I bet you've got an opinion. And do you have passion for what you're talking about and up-to-date knowledge? And it's as simple as that. It really, really is as simple as that.
So what I want to do, actually, is connect what you're thinking and what you're describing to this audience, the Coaching Unlimited audience. And most people listening to this will be coaches. And one of the philosophies that we talk about a lot in Coaching Unlimited is how we create powerful relationships, how we create powerful experiences of us, how we create powerful connections, because we believe that's the best form of marketing. And so I think there's kind of an interesting paradox, which is why I wanted to speak to you, Penny, that the media, especially the TV and big broadcasting media, it's a fantastic mass market platform. And yet my sense is that if you got onto BBC Breakfast, for example, which is a flagship program, it's actually a very intimate conversation where you can really shine. And I'm very specific about that because someone in this group was on BBC Breakfast as a coach. They wanted some opinion about a happiness survey, and they phoned around and found someone who was a life coach, and they got invited to Manchester, and they were on TV the next morning.
Brilliant.
So I'm really curious about what your view is of someone who is a coach, someone who maybe works in the field. They might help local businesses, or they might help with weight loss or fitness, many different areas. I know some coaches in here work with post-traumatic stress disorder. How do they use the media to create a platform for themselves?
Okay, so it's really a case of, first of all, acknowledging that it is possibly one of the best platforms for marketing and raising your profile for your business that you can possibly get. I mean, I trained a knee surgeon. I love that, don't you? I trained a knee surgeon. Brilliant. He's an amazing surgeon. He uses a new technology that relies on, gets greater accuracy, basically, relies on computer-aided technology. He had spent £14,000, so about $20,000, I think, maybe $19,000, on a local radio advert campaign. So he'd got a jingle made, a little song to go for his clinic, and a little bit of him talking about it, and it was 30 seconds long, and he paid a lot of money for it. He was then going to be on a national radio program. When I was coaching him, he called me in to help support him through that. For half an hour on a national basis, talking directly to his audience. Now, his audience, his customers, are sports people, young guys who've injured themselves playing five-a-side football. That so happened to also be this national radio station's audience as well. It was a perfect fit. So what he was doing there for free, it was raising his profile as an expert and not having to pay a penny for it. So let's just get that on the table. This works. This is really good for your business, so it's well worth thinking about it. The real question, how do you go about it? Well, I think two things. You first of all start by understanding your market. Like you did when you set up in business. You worked out who your target audience was going to be, didn't you? You sat there and thought, who do I like working with? Where are my skills best placed? Who's going to resonate the most with me? I'm going to pursue those people as opposed to just pursuing everybody. The same is true in the media. If you think that your customers are young men playing five-a-side football, then you should go and find the radio stations that those people listen to, and then find the radio stations that would have your kind of personality on. And that really is not a hard thing to do. It requires turning on the radio and listening. It's as simple as that. It really is. And I'm so surprised by the number of people who say, I really want to be on air. I really think I'd be great on TV. And I go, I'm sure you would. Where are you going to appear? And they can't think because they don't either watch the television enough or they don't listen to the radio enough. And the radio is the most obvious place where people would turn up. So listening and doing your research and your homework of your market is absolutely crucial. And when I say this question, where do you think you could turn up on TV or radio? And people often naively say, well, I'd just get my own show. Well, I can't even get my own show. Do you know what I mean? So it's about fitting into the market. And then once you've come up with that, and this is a real coach thing, you guys are going to be brilliant at this because you really just identify the top 10 programs, not necessarily stations, but programs where you think your stuff would fit in. And then you begin to build a picture of what is happening in the world that then you could comment on. Because remember, there's got to be a reason why you're on air. And we call it a hook or a peg. So if you think about a coat peg, it's all very well a coat peg just sitting there, but you need to put a specific type of coat on it in order for it to make sense. Today I'm going to put a raincoat on because it's rainy. So there we go. That's the peg. Why are we talking about the rain? Well, it's rainy. Okay? I know that's a bit of a strange one, but for example, yesterday was Internet Safety Day. If you were an Internet safety expert, I would imagine you'd be in hot demand on that day. So it's about working out stuff that's going on in the world, what you could say on it, and how that might fit in with what's happening and what gets broadcast on these radio programs. So I've got a friend who's a hypnotherapist, and when I first met her, and bearing in mind my background is news and current affairs and business journalism, she said, I've been on radio for the last 15 years. I went, yeah, right. Like what? Doing? I mean, really? I mean, who's going to interview a hypnotherapist? I mean, David Cameron makes an announcement about hypnotherapy? No. She went, no. Hear me out. There are lots of opportunities that perhaps are a bit more left field. They're not so obvious. They're not front page news. So her main items that she can talk about are, guess what? Giving up smoking, sleep deprivation, stress at work, stress at Christmas, stress over finances, empty nesting, university students going off to, just take the big topics on a big piece of paper, what you deal with, stress, depression, anxiety, and then think about the actual specific topics that come up in the papers, on the radio stations, that people can talk about. So stress at Christmas, she was on the local radio station talking about that. She had an opinion about it. She'd worked with clients who had stress. She knew what to say and do. She had suggestions for people to go away and make their Christmases a bit better. Now, she was brilliant because she knew how that program worked because she'd been listening to it. So she fitted in. These radio stations have customers. You need to talk to those customers so that when you go off air and you've left the building, those radio producers are going, oh, she did a great job, didn't she? She really fitted in. We'll invite her back. So it's really beginning to, instead of, like we all love listening to the radio, don't we, or watching a bit of telly. It's like chewing gum for the brain a lot of the time, or it's we kind of consume it as a passenger. The first thing you really need to do is begin to actively listen to the radio and watch television, and be critical and make notes and approach it like a new subject that you're studying, because then you can begin to build that list of 10 programs where you know you'd be welcome. Then secondly, how to do it, that's a whole other conversation, I think, in terms of like how to package up what you're saying and all the rest of it. But does that make sense, David, about how to approach this? I mean, I call it understanding the beast.
Well,
not being
I think it's like,
of it.
Well, I think there's two things that I take from that. I think, first of all, as the man or woman in the street, especially, well, maybe not especially in the UK, but we've grown up in an environment where there's a huge monolith of the BBC and the ITV, and they feel very distant and grand and big and closed. And
glamorous and important.
Glamorous, yeah. And so there's the first bit of it, which is just overcoming that, which is they're just people inside that building who want to fill their programs. Yeah. And but the second thing, which I think is really interesting, and it's one of the challenges that lots of coaches have, which is actually, where's my target marketplace? So in the same way that you might find your target marketplace, it's actually the same process of actually, where's my target audience in the media? Are they listening to Women's Hour? Are they listening to the breakfast program? Or which programs are they listening to? A finance program or a sports program? Where are they likely to be listening? So that leads me to my next question.
There's that.
How do you then connect to that?
Well, you really have to listen and put yourself in the shoes of your customer. I would also consider national versus local. I mean, if your customer base is truly local, then why would you try really hard to achieve national interview level when it would be a lot easier to knock on the door of your local radio station and ask them who the best person to approach about a story idea would be. And then when a story idea comes along, like stress or finance, people clearing their clutter in January, or, giving up something for 40 days for Lent, how hard can it be, the personal challenges of that? That might be something you think, I could, it's a bit fluffy, but I could talk about it, and it would definitely fill that afternoon show because I've been listening for the last couple of times, and they have that kind of topic on, and I don't want national customers. I want local customers. So then, you're becoming the go-to expert on subjects around, like that would be brilliant. And if you can do a good performance the first time and you fit in, then it's all power to your elbow.
So as a broadcaster and journalist, what would make you or someone like you choose to have someone in your program? How do they connect with you? How do they find you? What would make you choose to pick them and say, yeah, I'd love to have them on my show?
I need a short email. You spend hours drafting a press release. Forget that. I'm never going to read to the bottom of it these days. There's too much going on. A short email that doesn't just say, hi, I'm great, I can tell you about stuff. No, it's not good enough. Imagine that I'm a bit challenged time-wise and brain capacity. Like, you need to lead my horse to water and say, today is 20 days before Christmas. You're probably going to be worried about stress at Christmas. Or a survey has come out today. Have you seen it? Here's the link to it. I'm really happy to talk on this subject. And come into the studio and hi. So you're not just saying, hi, I'm great. You're saying, hi, I'm great, and here's something that might be of use to you. And also bear in mind that when you email that contact that you've phoned up about and said, who's the best person to find out, send a program idea about the afternoon show or the drive time show or the breakfast show that you have done the research on and listened to. So you're not sending them duff ideas that don't make any sense for their agenda. If they don't reply to you, please, please, please don't see that as a rejection. It doesn't mean rejection. It means that I have not had the time to process what you sent me. I know that it's something that we perhaps covered last week. I know that our program is already full, but I will bear it in mind. So rejection is not something that you should think about. Getting on someone's radar is. So if someone has emailed me once and then they again maybe email me in another 3 weeks' time with a really decent topic and go, New Year's Day, hangovers, how ruinous are they? Giving up alcohol for January, is it easy? Then I'll go, oh yeah, that person's been in touch a few times. They must be an expert in their field. I'm going to call them and see if they're any good. I'm going to get them on air. Brilliant. They've helped me out because it's New Year's Day and no one else wants to come on. There's a sort of catalogue of events that can happen, which is often out of your control. Well, I would say 9 times out of 10 out of your control, actually. But like anything, like when you're dealing with clients who haven't quite bitten yet, you keep sending them your newsletter, or you keep mentioning your blog to them, or you keep meeting them at networking, and they have a nice chat with you, but they never quite bite, do they? But, at some point they may well. It might be 3 years down the line. And that is often the case with the media as well. So you've got to be patient, you've got to know your market, and you've got to approach it in a friendly, expert way that is helpful, just like you would with the client.
So it sounds like consistency and patience are 2 virtues to have when you're building this relationship. And initially, it might feel like a one-way relationship initially, before you actually establish a connection. Often.
It might be that you've written a blog on a topic and you just copy the URL into an email. Hi, Jackie, I heard your show last week. Jackie is the producer maybe. Jane is the presenter. Jane was sounding great. I also know about this subject, or if you're looking to make this subject a bit more important to your listeners, I wrote about this. If you don't have to wait for a news item to drop in, you could create your own, if you're blogging already, you're probably, hopefully, commenting on contemporary relevant stuff in your world anyway. So again, you're building on your expert knowledge. So none of what you're doing in this way, none of this marketing activity, whether it gets picked up and you're on air and become famous overnight or not, is a waste of time, I think, because you need to be doing this anyway to be current. Yeah. And you need to be writing and articulating your opinions on stuff so that you're more attractive to clients. And if it comes about that you are on air, great. Bear in mind, local radio only has, 300, 500,000 listeners at best. It's not a lot. Yeah. But you can use it on social media as well. You can say that you've been on the BBC or Radio WYNK or whatever it is. In America, you know what I mean? It's like I am endorsed as an expert. So be patient, build the picture, get the contacts slowly. It's not something that you can do overnight, and then the fruit that will bear fruit in some way or another. One other thing to mention is a lot of people meet journalists at networking, or they, happen to circulate with them. The worst thing to say is the journalist is like, "Hi, I run a business. Brilliant. I'm great." Okay. It's to have a clever conversation that goes, "God, did you see the report last week about blah, blah, and blah? I think X, Y, and Z. If you've ever got it on your program at all, I'd be really happy to help out. Here's my card." It's giving them something, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's making your job easier.
Yeah, I know, because ultimately we're just people in offices making programs, and if we don't get those bums on seats in time, we can't have a sandwich for lunch. It would literally have to work longer and harder and do what's called phone bashing. Whereas if a timely email arrives in our laps and it's somebody who looks quite decent, they send a link to their website and they know what they're doing, they're running a business, they're professional, then let's get them on, give them a go. Oh, the other thing I haven't mentioned, if you do go on local radio, if you get an opportunity, and you're talking about something that then gets picked up by other news outlets, maybe the print media or an online site, or maybe national news runs with it, they've often got lists and databases in the system of people who've spoken on certain subjects, and your phone number and your contact details have been there next to your name, and there may even be a comment from a producer going, "Great, good job, let's invite them back." Yeah. It's amazing how often, within a few days, people can be picking up your name and using it. And we love to think that we've cultivated our own contacts. And I've got David Taylor as a contact in my contacts book. I found him, and he once spoke about, job losses at this particular insurance company. And he's just a great speaker. So let's get him on again to see what he thinks 10 years later. I think I've made that little contact happen myself. I haven't. And ultimately, journalists aren't lazy. They're just a bit time poor. So it's worth bearing that in mind. How can you help them? How can you do a good job? And we are just people in offices looking to put bums on seats. Not that I'm saying that your network is full of bums, basically, David.
Yeah, I get that. But I do like what you say about the snowball effect, because there's a halo effect that's built. I was involved in a media campaign many years ago, where I was working with a consultancy, and we wanted to position it in a new marketplace. And we did some very simple primary research. But on the basis of that, we got literally acres of coverage. In the industry magazine, in the industry newspaper, which was a weekly newspaper, we were on the front cover and had 4 center pages and the back page, which was the opinion page. But then that got picked up by the broadsheets. It got picked up by a couple of radio stations. I got interviewed by the Financial Times, which it's very hard to get interviewed. It's very hard to get opinion at the Financial Times. It's probably one of the benchmarks, that and the Wall Street Journal. And it's because it snowballed. And this went on for about 4 weeks. One single story rolled on for about 4 weeks in various different journals and newspapers, and it was very simple. But it was making that initial connection. That initial connection creates the story.
If you think nowadays, you've got, the media is not just a newspaper and it's not just TV or radio. It has an online service to fill as well. And I've heard from journalists, daily news journalists, saying that Twitter is their newswire. So if you need to get on Twitter, you need to be putting content there. It needs to be on message. So, not about what dinner you had last night that was yummy, or the cat that you stroked in the street once. Forget all that. It's professional and business, and it should be full of your content that is absolutely appropriate for your clients and your business. And if you get to know the journalists' names who are on air, or the producers, or the print media journalists as well, who have specialisms, the correspondents in these areas, in your area rather, then you can include them in your Twitter conversation, and maybe you probably won't get a reply, you probably won't get a set piece 20-minute interview on national television straight away, but again, you're not being rejected, you're just getting on the radar. Yeah. So I think Twitter especially for journalists, is their newswire. It's fantastic.
I've heard that. There's someone I work with. She's my chief wow officer, and she made some great connections with journalists on Twitter, and she created interaction with them, and that's where she found them, and that's where they said they're looking. That's where they don't look on Facebook, they don't look anywhere else. They look on Twitter, and that was a big lesson.
Look on Facebook, and it's nice. Social media is a whole new topic, but it does, in that regard, overlap with traditional media, and is a really quick and handy tool. Just say, look, this is what I talk about, this is what I know about, and if you ever need anyone, I'm here. That's what you're saying, like you would to any client.
So we must draw to a close. You've shared so much information, Penny. I really appreciate it.
Because I'm so passionate, David.
I can tell. But I do have one question up my sleeve that I must ask you before we close, which is, I guess it's the human aspect of it. What is the funniest or the weirdest thing that's ever happened to you live on air? Put you on the spot now.
I know. I should have. Do you know what? I'm going to work on a backstory that says something amazing and fun, and maybe drops a celebrity name in as well. But I don't have that right now, so I'm going to go and work on that. But I will tell you this: not all of my life has been exciting because I'm a business journalist. So for me, the stars, the celebrities, are chief executives and people running their own businesses and working hard. Now, I once had on somebody who was, this is where she really, really nerves on air. It's just such a bad thing, which is why media training is often a really good supportive way of getting into this. But so I was producing a workplace program, and it was Radio 4, it was live, and it was called Nice Work, and it wasn't recommissioned after its 6th series, I think. It was a really good program, I thought. But anyway, workplace is never sort of like on message on the radio particularly. So anyway, we're on air, and our last guest is I can't remember what she was an expert in. Maybe she was an employment lawyer, something like that. And we're talking about maybe redundancies, something like that. And we had 3 minutes of airtime with our live guest. And the presenter asked her a question, and she answered it with probably 2 words. Now, for a presenter or a producer, you know that your guest is in trouble when they're not straight away expansive. If I just answered your first question with 2 words, you'd think I was nervous, that I didn't know my stuff, that I wasn't confident. She got asked another question. 2 or 3 words came out. And we both looked at the big clock in the studio and went, oh my God, how are we going to get through this? And I swear to God, we kind of limped to the top of the hour, the 4 o'clock when the program was over. And the poor woman, she was literally drowning from her own nerves and breath live on air. Dear. And it was a bit of a dog's dinner, really. Bless her heart. But that was a lesson to me to maybe not always leave on a live guest that I hadn't tried before. So anyway, that was that. But yeah, things like live news coming on and cutting you short live on air was always challenging, but always fun as well. You know, there's nothing like the frisson of a bit of adrenaline to wake you up and keep you alive, isn't there? So yeah, it's all good fun. But I work on that celebrity story for you next time.
Thank you. So I'm guessing that was the longest 3 minutes of your life, which led to the 2 minute long question to give her a one word.
I think it was probably longer for her, actually.
Well, Penny,
longer.
Thank you so much for taking the time today. Really enjoyed our conversation.
You're very welcome.
And I'm sure there'll be some people out there who would love to get in touch with you. What's the best place to find you?
Come to my website, because there's lots of contact information there, but also lots of detail about what I do and how I work, and also what I've done with my journalism. So you can see that I actually am for real. And I've got a few bits of free stuff to give away, like how to listen, what programs to listen to. It's very UK based. I'm sorry for international listeners, but also you can apply the same sort of approach to your own media vista, if you like. So get in touch. There's an email address. If you want anything free or want to just have a look, then please come and visit and say hi. It'd be lovely to hear from people.
Thank you so much, Penny, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon. Bye for now.
Cheers, David. Thank you.